mile in my shoes. How about that? Our theme for this month is compassion, love, and caring. And today we're talking about compassion in action. What better way to have compassion in action than to realize what somebody else's journey is? And not to judge that journey, but to lift them up, to find ways that we can embrace them and we can encourage them on their journey. I have said this before, but life is a mirror and it reflects back to us what we put out. And so if we are encouraging other people, guess what? We're going to get encouraged too. That's just the way the universe works. Spirit is like that. What we're giving out, we're also getting back. So we choose wisely, and we get to have that opportunity to walk in somebody else's shoes. Now, if you want to know about compassion, which I wanted to since I was doing this talk, of course I went to the dictionary. Now, you don't do the dictionary like we did when I was a child, but Merriam-Webster Dictionary is online, and it will say that for compassion, the definition is a feeling of wanting to help someone who is sick, hungry, in trouble, etc. Then I went to vocabulary.com. I don't think they had that when I was a child. And vocabulary.com, along with that type of definition, said that compassion is a word for a very positive emotion that has to do with being thoughtful and decent. Now, weren't we all taught to be thoughtful and decent? As children, I think we probably were. We may have learned that lesson or we may not have. But I think the people here learned that lesson. So for me, when I look at compassion and compassion in action, compassion is really where Spirit stirs my heart and opens my heart into action. How can I help myself? How can I help other people? And that's what this is really looking at here, is how can we make the world a better place, both for ourselves and for someone else. In the Science of Mind, this is a really busy slide, but I want to give you what the quote was here. In the Science of Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes writes, if the philosophy of Christianity were lived, wars would cease, unhappiness would cease, economic problems would be solved, poverty would be wiped from the face of the earth, and man's inhumanity to man would be transmuted into a spirit of mutual helpfulness. That's the philosophy of Christianity. That sounds like a world I'd like to live in. One resource I read said the philosophy of Christianity is a way of life. And when we look at Jesus, that's what we're looking at, was his way of life. Now, I like that little snippet because in Science of Mind, we say science of mind is a philosophy, a faith, and a way of life. So to say living by Christian principle is going to be a way of life, it calls us to something more aware than just reacting to life. It really calls us to a higher consciousness, because that's what Jesus showed, was this higher consciousness, this oneness with the Father, and knowing that all things are united. When we look at Jesus' life, he was not about judging people. There was nowhere where Jesus was ever judging anyone. He would say things like, well, who do you say that I am? Or he'd say, where's everyone that condemned you? He didn't judge. He would ask a question. To the paralyzed man, take up your bed and walk. He had faith. He knew that the man was healed. He didn't judge it. He didn't say, well, why are you laying here? What caused this? He simply loved. His compassionate heart opened to the people that he walked through life with. And he found ways to encourage them and to lift them up. He lived in that unity of all life, paying no attention to the races or the classes of people. You know, in Jesus' day, there was very strict rules about who could talk to who could be around who. You had certain areas that you went. Now, everybody had to go to the same well to get their water. But if there was a Samaritan there at the well, the Jewish person couldn't come to the well until after they had left. You didn't mix the people. That was all out in Jesus' mind, because Jesus saw the unity of everybody. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm sorry, you're at the well, I can't come over there now. Jesus would step up and would engage people in conversation, would ask about their lives, would look at their consciousness, and would open his heart to encourage them. Can we do that same thing? Can we live from that same heart of compassion and encourage other people? Jesus was here to help the individuals. And in helping individuals, he created a better world. We have that same opportunity. We can help individuals. And in doing that, we make a better world. Have you ever taken the time to ask yourself, why am I here? What is it that I should be doing? So let me share a couple examples from the life of Jesus. I know this is weird for some of you because I don't usually talk about the Bible. But a third of our textbook is Ernest explaining different parables in the Bible. And so Jesus was our great example here. Not the great exception, but he gave us the example of here's how to live your life. And to live your life with compassion and in action. Actually doing something with the compassion that's inside. In Matthew chapter 8, 5 through 14, you have the story of the centurion who came to Jesus because he had faith. He knew that Jesus could heal his servant. So he came to Jesus and he said, if you would only speak the word, my servant would be healed. What faith? Jesus listened to that, recognized the faith that this man had, and what could he do but speak the word for the servant to be healed? That was compassion. When we have the story of the prodigal son, a big story, let me get my reference, because I know you're all writing this down. Luke 15, 11 through 32. The story of the prodigal son. And at the end of that story, when the prodigal son realizes that his father's servants are being treated better than he has it, what's he do? He awakens and he returns to his father. And it says, while he was still far off, the father looked up and saw him, and he was filled with compassion. He ran to his son. He fell upon his neck and he kissed him. That is compassion in action. No judgment. Where have you been? What have you been doing? Why did you squander all of your inheritance? There was none of that. It was compassion. It was love. And open heart, open arms. Can we live from that place? Or are we too attached to our judgments in life? Some people deserve our love. Other people don't. That's a judgment. And when we live purely from compassion, then we allow all people to express life as they need to, as they want to, as they have learned, and we can raise them up by giving them support, by loving them gently into a broader view of their life. In the Science of Mind textbook, on page 368, Ernest is talking about Jesus' example, and he describes him as compassionate in his tenderness, understanding the frailties of the human mind, saying he let the Great Spirit speak through him in words of love and sympathy. He goes on to talk about the value of each person here. And that's what we can look at, is the value of each person. Is one person more valuable than another? No. Why? Well, it's because we're all made from the same stuff. We're all made from the same God stuff. We know and we believe that God is all there is. So if God is all there is, there's nothing outside of God. Our philosophy is not God and a devil. It knows that God is all there is. So everybody, regardless of how they're expressing themselves, is an expression of God. And can we take that in? Can we love that and allow that to be? Or do we get too threatened and have to judge and say, well, that's not right. They shouldn't act like that. They shouldn't do that. Now, I will give you this caveat. There are a lot of people on this planet. Some people we will relate to more than others. We don't have to dance with everybody. So if somebody really pushes your buttons, don't keep going there. Love them and love yourself enough to move on to the next dance partner, to move on in life, so that you surround yourself with love and support, and you give that out, and you're going to get that back. The examples that Jesus gave us here of the unity, the oneness, what I'm talking about, we have a wonderful example right here in Colorado. That's my nod for the slide. The aspen trees. Now, I have learned this several years ago. When you have an aspen grove, you see all these different trees, don't you? But when you look below the surface, there's one root system for that entire grove of aspen trees. That, to me, signifies how we are each different and unique. We all look different. We're unique in our expressions and how we live life. But under the surface, we all came from that same root system, that same God, that same spirit of creativity, of love and oneness. And so when we recognize our humanity and our one human family, we are unified in that. And in that unity, we can allow people, hopefully, to express as they need to, as they want to. I don't want everybody to look just like me. Ooh, wouldn't that be awful? Or to talk just like me, or to have the same talents I have. When we come together in a very diverse community, we create a much richer tapestry of life. And how wonderful is that? Because then we can see things from different perspectives. It opens up a whole lot more of life to us. So remember the aspen trees as a way of seeing spirit below the surface, being the source of everything, but yet the different expressions. Compassion in action. We have things that touch into our compassion all the time. I'm sure you've seen some of those commercials on TV where they show you the starving child, where they show you the abused animal, and they want you to donate money for that cause. They're tapping into our compassion. Are we going to be compassionate and share? But you know, you don't have to be doing a project like that. There are many things that you can do as an individual that can really make a difference in the world. When I think about compassion and how a person that shows and lives compassion, I think of Gandhi. And I think of the good work that he did in the world to bring about compassion and love for people. So I learned this week that Gandhi had a student called Vinoba. And he's on the internet. When I Googled him, he was there. And Vinoba, Gandhi got to know him, and he said, you know, Vinoba understands Gandhi's mind better than Gandhi does. And so Gandhi helped him to grow. And the story was that after Gandhi was assassinated in 1948, Vinoba was looked to by Gandhi's followers as a leader. He didn't want to be a leader of the people, but they pushed him, give us direction. And so what he told the people of India was, since we have reached our goal of independence now from Britain, and we are under self-rule, we're independent as a country, our new goal should be the welfare of all. So broaden that out to all people. Vinoba traveled into a section of the country that was having a civil war. And the Civil War was about the land rights. They had wealthy landowners that owned all this land, and then they had people in the country that had no land and had no way to provide for themselves. The communists were in here because this was an opportunity for them to maybe get a stronghold. And the Indian government was there. And these people that had no land, no way to make a living, were promised by the communists that they would give them land. And so they said to Vinoba, who walked into the middle of all this war and this fighting that's going on, what can we do? Can you ask the government to give us land? Because they're not going to give us land, but the communists will. So we need to support the communists. And Vinoba said, let me think about this. It doesn't sound like the right solution. Later that day, he held a prayer meeting. And many people came to this prayer meeting. And so he explained to the people, this is what's going on in our country. And we have these people, they were called the untouchables. And the untouchables need to be able to make a living for themselves. How can we help them to make a living? The communists want to give them land, and the government does not want to give them land. What do you think we should do? Vinoba didn't really think that anybody would respond. Soon a man stood up, and he was a very prominent farmer. And he said, I will give you 100 acres for the people to use. Vinoba was shocked. Here, out of generosity, simple generosity, this man was going to give 100 acres of his land for these people, so they could make a life for themselves. He recognized that this was a way that the turmoil in the country could be squelched, could be solved. And so he started traveling to other villages. And over 7 weeks, he collected 12,000 acres that he could give to these people. His followers then continued in this region of the country, and he went on to the rest of his life. But his work, people collected land in his name for a couple of years. And in that time frame, they collected over 100,000 acres of land. Simple generosity, people helping one another, giving what they could. I'll give you some acreage that I have so that somebody else can make a living for themselves. That is compassion in action. Mother Teresa is another name I think of when I think about compassion. And somebody came to Mother Teresa because she had collected over 100,000 people, the poorest of Calcutta, that she was caring for. And they said, Mother Teresa, how did you collect 100,000 people here? And she said, I didn't set out to be able to serve 100,000 people. I started with one, and then one, and then one. And in serving one person, in helping one person, and then another person, and then another, soon there was this big wave of people that she was helping, that she was doing good for, and making a difference in their lives. Are you willing to make a difference with who you are, where you are, and what you have? Because you can. One person can make a difference here. Another story. There was a beach that one morning had all of these starfish washed up on the beach. And as the tide receded, the starfish were stranded on the beach. This young boy was walking down the beach and he saw this. And so he started picking up the starfish and throwing them back into the deeper water so they could swim away. And he was working, throwing these starfish into the deeper water. And this old man walked by and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm helping the starfish." And the man looked and he said, "There are too many here. You're never going to make a difference." And the little boy, undaunted, picked up the next starfish and said, as he tossed it back into the deeper water, "I made a difference for that one. I made a difference for that one. I made a difference for that one." Are we willing to make a difference right where we are? Do we think it has to be something grand? We don't have to have every seat in here filled to know that there is consciousness here that raises up this place, that we in Parker, Colorado can make a difference here, that we can encourage other people to build a better life for themselves, to know the solution is always love and compassion. One final story for you here. In 2014, I did a project, and it was called Shoes for Water. And so I had gotten this video, and it showed this company. And what they did was they collected shoes, and then they would take used shoes, they would sell them at a fraction of the regular cost, and they would provide them to people in third world countries that didn't have shoes. And the money that they gathered from doing this, they would use to buy drilling rigs to drill freshwater wells. And they were doing this in Haiti, they were doing this in Africa. And so people, instead of having to walk 4 miles each direction to get fresh water for the day, could have a freshwater well right in their area where they lived. So it was helping so many people. Well, this called to my heart. I thought, this is something I can do. We were a small group. The center that I was at in Florida at the time only had 12 people or so that came. We were meeting in a hotel in a little conference room. 12 people is not a lot of people. I could have been very discouraged, but I know that I was aware I could do just what I could do, and Spirit would bless that. And so I created my little flyer. This was one of the pictures on the flyer, and put that up and started collecting shoes. And I gave them a deadline, and I shared it with the other 11 people in our center. This is what we're doing. We're going to collect shoes. Well, I had one lady that was a hairdresser. She said, "You know, I put one of your signs up in my hairdresser shop," whatever she calls that, salon. There you go. And she said, "I go to the gym, And so I'm going to take this to the gym because the gym I work out with, all of the Miami police officers work out there. And she put those signs up. You would not believe the shoes that I got from these police officers. Brand new shoes in boxes. Beautiful men's shoes. I got all kinds of shoes from all of these people. Some people would bring me 2 or 3 pair. They went through their closet and here, I'll give you this. Other people went out into the community and said, hey, can you help? We're doing this project at my church, and I want to know if you could donate some shoes. I had people that donated new shoes, people that donated used shoes, people that donated the dirtiest shoes you've ever seen. And so one of the things that was required of me was that I needed to tie both of the shoes together. I guess they weren't serving one-legged people. So you needed to have 2 shoes. They needed to match. And I should either tie the strings together, rubber band them together, put a piece of rope around them. So this was a spiritual practice for me. Because as I went through the shoes, because I get them in big garbage bags and big boxes, I would go through and I'd put them together. And I would say a prayer for the person that was going to get that pair of shoes. It became so precious for me to be able to pray for those people. Now, we lived in a condo at the time. And so all of a sudden, the extra bedroom was filled with bags of shoes. And luckily, we had a friend that had a condo 2 doors down that they had vacated and moved somewhere else. And they let me start storing shoes in their condo. By the end of this, I had over 500 pair of shoes that these 12 people had collected. Over 500 pair of shoes. What a difference. And they were prayed for, they were blessed, and I knew some of these people were going to be so thrilled with these shoes. There were some of the cutest little baby shoes in there. It's like, oh my gosh, they're so cute. It was wonderful and such a great practice. So making a difference. We can all do something to make a difference. Our marketing team has done something to help you make a difference. They have created little cards for us. And there's 3 different designs here. On the back of them, they all say the same thing. They say, you made a difference in my day. Thank you. And at the bottom it says, cslparker.org. This is something that you can take and hand out to anyone that makes a difference. A server at a restaurant. Maybe the person at the dry cleaners. The person standing in line with you that had a little conversation at the grocery store. You can just hand them a card and say thank you. And they'll get the message. You made a difference in my day. And that's how we can make a difference in their day. Is it self-serving? We do have our website there, but that is to help you because a lot of people will say, well, why are we doing this? What is this for? They can go to our website and see what our church has to offer. And maybe they would like to be a part of that. So it's kind of a soft sell. I mean, I'm being honest with you here. It's kind of a soft sell if people want to know something. But bigger than that, the bigger letters on here are thank you. You made a difference in my day. And I love that. So these are over on, where else? The education table, where everything is besides the food. And you can pick these up, take some with you, use them to make a difference. Use them to show your compassion in action. It's a great way to share of ourselves. And people like to be validated. They like to know that they are appreciated for what they do. And you know, I appreciate it when I have good service somewhere. I appreciate it when somebody goes out of their way to help me with a problem I'm having. I appreciate it when people can just offer a smile when I'm walking down the street, and I can return that smile. So there's many ways you can be creative how you want to use the cards, but I would encourage you to pick some up. Try it this week. Be compassion in action and love the world. Will you pray with me? There is one power, one presence. I know it is God. It is spirit. It is divine intelligence, nature, called by many names. And we are one with that power and presence. Knowing our unity there, and knowing that we are united with each and every person on this planet, each and every animal and plant, we are all part of God because God is all there is. Then we share in that same consciousness of the Christ, of Jesus, who knew the oneness with everyone. And in knowing that, our hearts are opened to the compassion, to walk a mile in their shoes, to help relate to someone else, to be the love that we want to see in the world. And we live our lives from that consciousness, from that place of love and joy and peace. And that is what is reflected back throughout all of our world when we put that out. I release my word knowing that it is accomplished. This is who we are, and we are grateful. And together we say, and so it is.